Hey book lovers, welcome to While I Read. I'm Katie Dodrell, and today I'm going to tell you about books that I've read recently. So I've got 7 books that I'm going to talk to you about today. 2 of them are thrillers, 4 of them are cozy mysteries, and 1 is a middle grade book that got 5 stars. As always, all the books that I talk about will be linked down in the description box. If you click on that link to buy any of the books, I'll get a small percentage of the proceeds as an Amazon associate, and that's at no extra cost to you. It's just a way that you can support my channel if you're interested. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to talk about the cozy mysteries first, and I read 4 cozy mysteries by Ellie Alexander. Can you tell that I really love Ellie Alexander? I'm so glad that I discovered her. So the first one that I'm going to tell you about is book number 2 in the Secret Bookcase series, and that is A Murder at the Movies. So in this book, our sleuth Annie is excited because she's still on a high from the event from the first book, where she had this mystery book festival in her town of Redwood Grove. And then in this book, A Murder at the Movies, she is having a film festival. So this film director had contacted her and asked her about having the premiere of a mystery movie in Redwood Grove. And so Annie is coordinating everything. So of course, things don't go as planned. When they get there, she finds out that there are all kinds of, secrets and intrigue between the stars of the movie, the director of the movie. There's a film critic that nobody really likes. And so on the night of the premiere, the film critic falls from a balcony to his death during the premiere of the movie. So of course, Annie and her friends have to figure out who the murderer is. So the best part of these books is the setting. Redwood Grove is just this beautiful, bookish kind of town. You learn about Annie's friends and about the other businesses in town, the restaurants in town, and it was just a really fun book. I gave it 3 stars. So after reading that one, I wanted to continue reading Ellie Alexander, but the only other book in the Secret Bookcase series is set at Christmas, and so I want to save that one to read at Christmas. We talked in my last Recent Reads video about how a lot of times I don't read cozy mystery series in order. You can hate me for that if you want to. So I decided to move on to Ellie Alexander's Bake Shop series. And actually, I have read the first 3 books in that series in order. So that will make those of you who didn't like me to get out of order happy. The first book in the Bake Shop series is Meet Your Baker. And so in this series, we meet our heroine, Juliet Capshaw, otherwise known as Jules. She has returned to her hometown of Ashland, Oregon. So she's had a very successful career as a baker on a cruise ship, but she has been unlucky in love. She's coming home to nurse heartbreak. She and her husband are estranged. And so, of course, we don't know exactly what happened, but we find out more as the book continues. So she comes home and she's going to work at her family bake shop, Tort, with her mom. So, of course, one of the best things about this book is the description of Ashland, Oregon, of the customers at the bake shop, of Jules' relationship with her mom and the other staff at the bake shop. So there is a Shakespeare festival in Ashland, Oregon, and a lot of the people who come into Tort are either people who are going to watch one of the plays, or a lot of the people who are involved in the theater. And so one of the women on the board of the Ashland Shakespeare Festival, her name is Nancy, she ends up being murdered, and she's murdered in Tort. Jules comes in and finds the body. So Jules ends up being involved in the investigation. Her former high school sweetheart, Thomas, is the police officer who is investigating what happened. So I found this book to be just the right mixture of cozy and exciting. I really loved the character of Jules, and I loved the description of the Shakespeare Festival and of the bake shop. So I gave this book 4 stars. Next, I read number 2 in the Bake Shop Mystery Series, Take the Cake. So in this one, it is autumn in Ashland. I love the descriptions of the beautiful autumn weather. And Jules is promoting Tort by appearing on a reality show called Take the Cake, where it's bakers competing against each other. And so the reality show is filming in Ashland. But of course, one of Juliet's fellow competitors on the reality show is murdered. Jules finds the body, and so she ends up getting involved in the investigation. Once again, her high school sweetheart, Thomas, is the police officer investigating the murder. So this book, I really enjoyed it. For whatever reason, I gave it 3 stars rather than 4. I don't even remember why I wouldn't have given it as many stars as the first one. I guess it's just not as memorable as the first one was to me. The first one, I'm just getting introduced to Ashland and all the characters in it. This one, it was good, but not quite as good as the first one, but I still really enjoyed it. I moved immediately into the 3rd book in the series, which is On Thin Icing. So this one is set in the dead of winter. I think it's sometime in January. It's the off season for Ashland, and so Tort is not very busy. And so Jules is hired to cater an off-season retreat for the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. And so it's taking place at this resort up on top of a mountain. So she and Sterling, one of her staff, go up to this beautiful resort. It is known for, its outdoor activities, but it's actually the off season for the resort right now too. So they get there, and of course things are not going as planned. The people who work at the resort, some of them seem kind of sketchy. There's this bartender who is rude and makes everybody mad. And then Jules finds his body in the freezer. So, of course, she has to figure out who the real killer is. It ends up there's a snowstorm, and they're snowed in up at this retreat. And she's snowed in with all of these board members of the theater, and Lance, who is the head of the theater, and he's really dramatic and calls everybody darling, and he's just a really great character. The other big thing that happens in this book is that Jules' estranged husband, Carlos, turns up there at the retreat. I was not expecting that at all. I was totally on board for Jules and Thomas, her high school sweetheart, to end up having a romance. And maybe they still will. I don't know. But now Carlos has turned up, and, we find out a little bit more about him. He's a sympathetic character, and so we don't know what's going to happen. But anyway, Jules has to solve the mystery of what happened to this bartender that no one liked. So I love this book. I gave it 4 stars. I always love the isolated in a snowstorm trope, and this book really did justice to it. Next, I'll talk about the 2 thrillers that I read. Both of these I talked about in my spring reading vlog, so I'll post a link to that in the description box. So first I'll talk about Count My Lies by Sophie Stava. This book is about a woman named Sloane who admits that she just likes to lie. She tells lies to make her life more exciting. So she ends up meeting this man named Jay and his daughter Harper in the park. Harper has a bee sting in her foot. Sloane tells the lie that she's a nurse and she helps get the bee sting out of Harper's foot. She ends up meeting Harper's mother, Violet, and before you know it, Sloane is a nanny for Harper. And so Sloane starts becoming obsessed with this family. She has a crush on Jay, and she is also, it's like she wants to be Violet. Like she wants to make her life as much like Violet's as she can. So the book was very suspenseful, very good. I kept wondering, like, is Sloane gonna just totally go over the edge in her obsession with this family? They end up going on a summer vacation to Block Island, and I love the summery aspects of it, like the vacation aspects, where they're going out to the beach every day or they're going to town for ice cream. But of course, there's always this underlying sense of menace. We know something's going to happen. So we know that Sloane is lying, but then as we're reading the book, we find out that actually Jay and Violet have secrets of their own too. So I liked this book. I didn't love it. I gave it 3 stars because I read it really quickly. I wanted to find out what happened, but I wasn't completely satisfied with everything that happened. So definitely recommend this book. It was a good time. The other thriller that I read was Retreat by Kristen Ritter. This book was about a con artist named Liz who goes to this Mexican villa and ends up impersonating Isabel, the owner of the villa. So Liz is supposed to be there to install a piece of artwork because part of her con is that she is like this art expert or art consultant, something like that. So Isabel contacts her and asks her to go to this villa and, install the artwork for her. But while she's there, Liz ends up being mistaken for Isabel, and she just can't resist going along with it. But she ends up finding out that there are some crazy things going on in Isabel's life. So I loved this book for its description of the Mexican villa. It's just this luxurious home. It's got a pool. It's right on the beach. She hangs out with these other rich women who, have everything, but many of them are pretty discontent with their lives. And then we start finding out some secrets about Isabel that could put Liz in danger. So I liked this one. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. It was a really good time. Also, I mentioned this in my blog. These books, the 2 books that I read for that blog, Count My Lies and The Retreat, were similar in that they were both about women who were liars, who were sort of con artists. In Liz's case, she's doing it for the money. In Sloane's case, she's just doing it because she likes to lie. But it was interesting that they had these similarities. In Count My Lies, I was always worried about the little girl in it, Harper. And so that kind of made me not enjoy the book quite as much. In The Retreat, there was no child that I had to worry about, so that's probably why I ended up giving it 4 stars rather than 3. But both of these are really good thrillers that I enjoyed. I had a really good time filming that thriller reading vlog too. I enjoyed getting to have my whole family in it and show you a little bit of our visit to my parents' farm where we love to go. So check that book out, or check that vlog out if you're interested. So the last book that I want to tell you about is my 5-star read, and that is The BFG by Roald Dahl. So I read this book with my 6-year-old daughter, Sarah. This was actually my very first favorite book as a kid. I can remember going to the library maybe in like 2nd grade and checking this book out and reading it and just loving it. And that's the first time that I remember reading a book on my own and saying, oh, I really like this book. And I think the BFG is what started me on the path to becoming a reader. So I read this with Sarah and she loved it too. So the BFG stands for The Big Friendly Giant. So it's about a little girl named Sophie who lives in an orphanage in London. One night she wakes up and she sees this giant walking through her town, and he sees her and he takes her. He takes her back to giant country. And so it turns out that he's not a bad giant. He's the big friendly giant. He just took Sophie because he didn't want her telling people about him. But there are bad giants living there in giant country. And every night the other giants go to different areas of the world and they eat children in those areas. I thought that would scare Sarah a little, but it actually didn't. She was okay with that in the book. But anyway, Sophie and the BFG come up with a plot to stop the bad giants. It involves a dream, it involves the Queen of England, and it's just such a fun book. So if you like middle grade books, or if you have kids who are around that age, I think they would love it. I definitely loved it. After we read the book, Sarah and I tried to watch the movie that came out a few years ago, directed by Steven Spielberg. But while the book did not scare Sarah, the movie did. Actually, seeing the giants on screen was too scary, and we had to stop halfway through the movie. So watching the movie was a fail, but reading the book was a win. So those are the books that I have read recently. Have you read any of these books? Are you planning on picking any of these books up? Please drop a comment telling me about it. Thank you for watching. If you like this video and want more book recommendations and reviews, please subscribe to my channel. Now, go take a nap while I read.